Yeah, yeah, but I'm not getting any. I'm not getting audio from. Oh, I know why I'm not getting audio from you. Hang on. All right, can you hear me on?
Yeah, it's weird.
Can you
Uh,
can you hear me on the on the conference?
yes, I can.
Oh, sweet. All right,
But the weird thing is, I don't know.
you're
Let me just.
frozen though on my end, just so you know.
I know.
Hey, bear with us, guys. We're just getting some things ironed out. Those of you watching on LinkedIn, we're everywhere. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. We're going to get this going here shortly. It's episode number 2. We're bringing in a new co-host here, so just bear with us here. We'll be ready to roll
Well,
here in just a few minutes.
hold on. This looks cloudy. I'll have a good story to tell.
Oh yeah, no, that's good. That's good. That's good. So I'm going to hang up on the phone here. No, we have a mix
Yeah.
minus set up. What's happening is I was on the phone with him too because we couldn't hear him. So he just has to put
Uh,
some headphones in or something to prevent some kickback.
yeah. Hold on one second.
So we were doing that because of
Can you hear my can you hear any echo or anything?
nope,
When
sounds
you
good on
talk?
my end.
Okay. All right. I'm just gonna listen. This is not the best setup, obviously.
Well, it'll work for today. All right,
Yeah.
guys. So we're gonna go dark here, and we're gonna get the show. Alfredo's in the chat going, I recognize that voice. All right, so we're gonna go dark, and then we're gonna start the show, and we're gonna be ready to rock and roll here with you guys. I appreciate your patience. We're only 3 minutes behind, but hey, we'll get into that here. So stay with us here. We're gonna get this show started. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of On Social. I'm your host, Stephen Haywood, and this is a show where we talk about everything that has to do with social media, marketing, live video in social media. So I'm happy you guys came out here. It's great to see everybody. Now, last week I had some comments of people saying that the audio was too low. So I fixed that. So hopefully we should have a little bit better volume for you guys here. It wasn't bad, but it was kind of a little on the low side. So I understand. I appreciate the feedback. You guys have been awesome. So what I want to do right now is I want to introduce a guy who I've known for a few years. This guy has a huge resume. This guy worked at ESPN for over 25 years. He handled a lot of the backroom stuff, and he was a manager. I'll let him kind of explain that. He also has his own successful social media marketing and video and audio podcasting business. It's a pleasure to introduce my friend, Mr. Marty McPadden from
He-
Podjam.tv. Welcome.
Hello, how are you?
It's great to have you here, man. I know we kind of went through a little bit of a little pre-show jitters there, if you will, trying to get some things ironed out. But yeah, we made it. Everything was good. Everything was good.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's funny. We have some notes for today, but I have a whole other story about why normally my shot would not look like this because I'm on my backup system, and that's a whole nother story. And that can be part of the discussion today, I guess. The importance of backup systems. At least have
Well,
something going.
I mean, this is something that we have done many times in many years where we've kind of talked to the audience. And one of the things that we get to do on the show, which is really cool, is we get to talk to people about understanding video and social media. As I alluded to earlier, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Vic Gravity, we're on Roku. Now, with Roku, if you guys are interested, my personal brand, TTB Network, if you search that app out, you can download it and watch this show live. I'm using that to help promote the Telestream show. Eventually, I'm hoping we get a Telestream app and people can enjoy it that way. But if you go to any of the Tech Buzz channels, you can watch it live, but you can also watch it, and I encourage you to watch it on the Wirecast, Telestream Wirecast Facebook page, or the LinkedIn page, the Telestream LinkedIn page, or the Telestream Tube. It's Telestream Tube YouTube channel. So make sure you guys do that. So, Marty, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself? I kind of alluded to a little bit of things here in the beginning, just for people that don't know, and we'll kind of get into why I thought you were kind of the perfect co-host for this with your current job.
Yes, as Stephen mentioned, I am an alumnus of ESPN. I spent almost 20 years of my career there. When I left in just about 5 years ago, this very month, I was manager. I was one of the managers in content edit, and our job was to watch over the editors, and primarily during prime time. So if you watch Sports Center or the studio shows, we would monitor and supervise the editors, creating the clips and the highlights for that show. So I had a lot of experience there working in control rooms. So I started my career as an associate director. I'd worked live events. So I have a lot of experience on the network side of things, and during as co-host of the show, I'll certainly bring in some of that experience and share it with Steven and you guys. But that's kind of my background. And then currently, since I've left ESPN, I'm in my own business. And Steven mentioned I do some social media marketing. I do a lot of production work with that social media marketing, podcast production and editing, video production and editing, live video shows and editing. So a little of everything there. We also do some live events on the road, and maybe you might during the course of the show you might see me from the road, coming in from various locations. Right now I'm on hiatus, but there may be later in the summer where we tend to go out for weeks at a time and doing these live events. But we'll get into that, and probably could be some good subjects for some shows. So that's kind of a little bit of my background, what I bring to it. And I've known Stephen for a while now, and always looked up to him. Stephen has a great history himself, and I just appreciate him bringing me on. And hopefully, between the two of us, and with the Telestream audience, we can help you guys get a little more social with your video. So,
Yeah,
looking forward to this, Stephen.
yeah. I mean, this is something that I think a lot of people. I alluded to in the last episode of how people really want to engage their audience, and there's a lot of things, Marty. I think you and I can both hit on as things of what not to do with live video on social. There's so many times that I know you and me have gone on. We've watched different shows, and we've seen people, do the cell phone, right? The cell phone shot, and they're kind of being live and wonky and making people dizzy, for lack of better discussion. But some of the other things that we've seen, right, is people going live from their bedroom, from their messy bed. Um,
Hmm.
what's as you going in the path that you're going? What's the biggest turnoff for you when you talk with clients and their big issue is like they want to go live, and you're saying this is what you should not do? What's one of your biggest, what you say, pet peeves when it comes to that?
I think it's not paying attention to the entire presentation, right? And I'll give you an example. In my job at ESPN, I was a manager, so I was involved in the hiring process. And so that meant interviewing candidates for jobs. So I'm sure everyone out there has gone out on a job interview from time to time. And one of the things you do is you want to present a good image. Now, it's not a question of being inauthentic or being fake. It's just you want to put your best foot forward. So then, people size you up, and whether you like it or not, they're making that first impression judgment and whether they should listen to you and whatever you say. So if it's an interview, whether they should continue to listen to you and take you seriously. If it's a video show, whether to take your content seriously or whether to give you your chance. And Stephen mentioned, kind of people kind of being casual and maybe, having stuff in the background. Now, I'll give you an example. My setup right here, I was kind of, I had a different setup. I normally run a nice camera and all that. I was having trouble with that. I always have a backup. And right now I'm just using my webcam on my computer, which is not the way I would normally do this. But 5 minutes to air, we have no little choice, and at least have my audio good and all that stuff.
We'll
But
troubleshoot
it's
this week. I mean, it happens.
exactly. But it's the way you present yourself, right? So hopefully you're not getting a bad impression on me because of my angle. Normally this is not my camera angle, but the importance of if people are just coming across your stuff for the first time and they're sizing you up, it's like you want to have that whole presentation down. So I call it like the 3 Ps: production, presentation, and not production, presentation, and content. Before they can get to the content, production presentation is important. Not a question that you have to spend a lot of money, and I think we'll get into that a little bit, Stephen. But it's a matter of just putting your best foot forward. Having a nice clear image, as clear audio as possible. Again, not spending a lot of money, but you got to remember all that. And again, preparation's the key. You just can't expect everything to work. And I had some issues now where I had to go to my backup here, but at least I had that available to me. And especially with this show being right at 2 o'clock, you have to go on. But I think that's the biggest thing, Stephen, is presenting that good presentation so that people actually listen to you.
I think too, when you're working with companies and businesses, we're both here, we're both in nice polo shirts, we're presenting ourselves well. We're not waking up with bedhead and coming on here and or wearing, clothes that you'd mow the grass in. I think a lot of people don't realize the amount that you have to look the part, not just have a good camera and a good microphone. If you can't present yourself well, I think it's a turnoff for people, especially if you're going to do this for business. If you're gonna have yourself be like you're doing, producing for people, you have to be able to give people the tips in order to make them the best possible presentation they can have, right?
Exactly. And that's probably, as far as when I'm working with clients, that's probably one of my bigger challenges, especially people that are new to it. They're chances are they're very focused on their content. Normally, when I'm working with they're pretty laser locked on that, but they get intimidated with all the production and presentation, and even this, where my camera angle is not where I normally would have it. This is a good tip here, where a lot of people have I'm using my laptop webcam, and the angle is not bad, but it's not the best. I would raise this camera up a little bit, probably put some books under my lap. If I'm using my laptop, put some books on the laptop, raise the camera up to eye level so that you're looking straight into the camera. Right now, I'm kind of looking down. And so I'm kind of demonstrating what not to do. Steven, on the other hand, his shot is what to do. So, this kind of like this issue I had with my camera kind of worked out, so I can kind of live demonstrate. This is not the ideal thing, although at least I have some lighting.
You can make it look good.
Mic.
Yeah.
Right. You're right. I make sure I dress up. I look. But my back, when he puts it on the main shot, my background's not good. My plain background's just a beige curtain, but my angle's not great. So you're seeing part of the wall. You're seeing the ceiling. Not ideal. And part of the deal with especially live video, and you're kind of looking at what's in that square, and it's almost like being in a TV studio where all that matters is what's in that square, and kind of that you're basically putting this illusion out, sort of like you're presenting this, and it could be a mess back here, it could be like a false front or whatever on sets or whatever, just a matter of how it looks and what you're presenting, and it's like you're creating this whole
a facade. It's basically a facade.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. So switching gears here a little bit, I think that one of the other key elements we touched a little bit on it last week was the importance of interaction. And one of the things that we're doing right now is we're streaming to multiple destinations, and each one of them has their own chat room. Okay. One of the biggest, in my opinions, one of the hardest things to do, especially like I'm producing it, I'm hosting it, we're co-hosting it here. One of the biggest things is to keep up with the chat room. Now, I noticed with LinkedIn Live, which is everybody wants to get on. It's the golden child right now, right? It's a great platform. We've gotten a lot of great viewers over there. But one of the things that I'd like to say to the folks watching, you have to refresh the page, unfortunately, to see the chat move. I've had to do it quite a few times here while we're doing this now. On YouTube, we're able to look at the chat room and see people that are commenting, and they're happy to see us back and being the duo again. Um, I think it's one of those things where we want to stay interactive with the chat room, but some of these companies got to make it a little easier for us on YouTube, and that some way to combine the chat room, because when you're streaming to 10 different destinations, it's kind of next to impossible to kind of keep up with everything, right?
Yeah, I can't overemphasize enough what you're saying about the interaction. I mean, if you're going to go live, that is key, and that's really what social video is all about, as opposed to mass media in the old days where you would broadcast out and you wouldn't have the interaction. It's very, very key. Now, you mentioned about going to multiple destinations, which has a lot of advantages, but one of the disadvantages is trying to keep up with the different chats. When people are watching you, it's funny because, and they should, they care about, having that connection with the host, and they might be watching on a platform that you may be difficult to monitor the chat. So I think that's going to be a challenge as far as the live video industry is how do you combine all these chats? I know there are some companies that are working on that, especially with the people that redistribute, the services that redistribute the signal,
Mm-hmm.
the restreaming services are working on that as well. But that's a challenge, and it, and what you do, Stephen, obviously you're self-producing, which is extremely difficult. That's another tip is, if you can work with a team or work with a couple other people, maybe one person can watch the chat for you, and you can set up a system where they can shuttle you questions, and it can be done remotely.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're doing there is very advanced, and I think that's something we need to point out is, especially if you're just starting out, don't expect to have it look how you are doing it, where you have your workflow rock solid. You've done it over
Right.
a period of years, and you're making it look easy. And that's kind of the red flag is when someone makes it look easy, it probably isn't. So.
And I would state too to everybody out there, when you're getting started doing this on social media, pick a platform where you have the biggest engaged audience and stick with that platform to get going. I think that's where you're going to have your most success, because when you start getting into multi-platform, and like Marty said, you don't have a team to work with you to engage in conversation. Um, there's so many things that can go wrong. I know there's different platforms out there that do involve they've integrated the chat rooms, but they're wonky. For lack of better terms, they're wonky. They don't always work correctly. Sometimes it misses things. So hopefully one day these tools will become available to everybody. But in the meantime, now Marty, you touched on something a little earlier. You touched about professionalism. We talked about being professional. But I think when people hear the word professional, they get scared, especially when they're going into social media maybe on a shoestring budget, and they get worried because they hear professionalism, and automatically that indicates big dollars. And I think we both have enough experience to say that you don't have to have high dollar to look professional. I mean, you're coming in here with a built-in camera right now. You do have a higher end microphone, but you
Mhm.
made your backdrop look really good, to where it doesn't matter. It's a curtain, but it doesn't look like you're sitting in your bedroom.
And I'm gonna raise this up. I'm gonna kind of demo of what it should look like. So if I just raise this up a little bit here, you can already tell that it's probably I'm looking more directly into the camera. So normally, if I was to use this as my normal setup, I would probably bring it up to about here and put maybe some books under it. And if you just have a laptop with a webcam like I'm using here, that's plenty to get started. The other thing, Stephen, is if you're just getting started and you don't have all the fancy equipment yet, that's actually not a bad thing because at least you can get used to workflow. And also, in the beginning, nobody's going to be watching. You're building an audience, especially if you're building it from scratch. So that's the time to kind of make your mistakes, learn. And if you do make a mistake, or if it doesn't look exactly how you may want it to look, down the road, it doesn't really matter, because you don't have a lot of people watching, and you can grow gradually. The other thing is, you mentioned I have a pretty fancy, both of us are using the Hilo PR40. You don't need a fancy mic like this to get started. A USB plug-in mic. We recommend a dynamic mic,
Hmm.
and maybe we can get into that in
We'll
another
get into that
show.
in another show, but
Yeah,
yeah, we
but
can.
just a plug-in mic is not very expensive. The camera on your laptop is fine. Just raise up your laptop. Just have a couple of lights, or even a brightly lit room, and you're good to go. Just have maybe a curtain in the back, and you're good to go. At least that'll get you started, and then you go from there. We can get into that as we get into more shows. But again, don't look at what Steven's doing or what I'm doing as out of the gate you have to do that. No, I mean, just have it like me. I'm just using my webcam, and it's not the greatest webcam at all. It's only 720p. It's not as crystal clear as what Steven's using. But again, I dress up. I make sure I looked all right. I make sure I'm in a well-lit room, decent microphone. Doesn't have to be this expensive. Have good content, and you're off and running.
I think that's something else to stress too. When you're doing this, um, we want this show to be as professional as possible. We want to give you guys the best experience that we possibly can. And I know a lot of you users in here, you're talking about Wirecast. Yes, Wirecast is one of the elements that we use here in the show, and it's fantastic. So if you have not, again, I'm not using this to sell the product, but if you're new to Telestream and you didn't know that we have this product, you definitely want to go check it out. Wirecast, over on the Telestream website, telestream.net. We also have a hardware configuration, which is the Wirecast gear. We have different versions of the software to get you going, with Wirecast One all the way up to Wirecast Studio and Pro. So there's something there for your needs without having to relearn your workflow. So I want to kind of put that out there. If you're liking what you're seeing here and you're like, hey, I'd like to do a show like that on social media, go check it out. There's a free download. I know Marty and I, we both use it. We've used it for years.
Mhm.
It's a great product. So I know a lot of the guys in there. So there's a lot of cool tips and tricks that you can use. Now, Marty, I kind of want to shift gears here before we have to wrap up the show. And one of the things is, we talked about that you do a lot of social media and video production work for clients. I don't know if people are aware, but you actually did back for Pandora. You did the John Legend show where he had come to New York. They wanted somebody to come in. I recommended you. You went in. You produced it. You kind of were like the overseer. I was kind of on speed dial, kind of helping you out if you needed it. But
You were
we,
great.
but we were able to get that going. John Legend was thrilled. The crew was thrilled. You were thrilled. I mean, it was good. Um, why don't you talk a little bit about it for a few minutes? What are companies looking for when it comes to these videos? I mean, when you look at something and a company says to you, "Hey, I want to look the best that I can," or "How do I get started with this?" What is your message to them?
Especially a business, hire a professional, work with them. I mean, you're gonna get a much better product. Some of the things I do, like with the John Legend show, that was part of a larger production, so they were taping a TV special, uh, around his latest album, and what we did as kind of a promotion was Pandora live streamed the first two songs of the session that he did. It was about an hour concert. It was invite only, and we live streamed the first two songs. And so we kind of piggybacked on the main production crew. So we had access to one of their cameras, the overall shot, and then we had a couple of our own cameras. And so my job there was, and we were running Wirecast, and so I worked with the crew at Pandora, and I was the TD, or technical director, and we had a director and a sound guy just for our setup. And so it was a very much a team approach, and that's another thing. I mean, Stephen, you're doing your show alone. Normally, any kind of production is a team sport, basically, and everyone kind of does one job. So my job was technical director. I made the actual switches based on the direction of the director over my shoulder. And so, yeah, we set up our shots and and Wirecast was great for that because we ran it off a Mac. I remember we ran it off a Mac Pro,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just perfect. And you were mentioning Wirecast and then the offerings there, like that. The Wirecast One is a great way to get started. But what the one thing I like about Wirecast and what worked great that night is really the simplicity of the interface, and it's just a really easy live stream package to get started with. If you have no experience in television, it's a great way to get started. It's very, very straightforward. You can bring sources in, and it worked great for us because it was something we just needed something fairly straightforward just to stream to Facebook, and it has that built-in streaming. So that's again, it's very, very easy, and the co-branded. So we streamed to the Pandora page in association with John Legend, and it was great. I mean, but I would say, hire a professional if you're a business. You don't know what you're doing. It's well worth the money. You're going to spin your wheels. It's like you can change your oil or change your own brakes on your car, but it's probably going to take you all day, and you're probably going to mess it up.
Well,
So if
well,
you're a business,
it's like what we always say, right? You say hire a professional, but all this stuff that you're seeing right now is being done preparation, 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 right? So you
yes.
always, what's the 90-10 rule that you always say, right?
Yes, and that's something that to a lot of people they don't realize that, but it's 90-10 rule. 90% of the work is done, and you really only see 10%. So this part we're doing now is really the 10%. The 90% is all the pre-work and all the
Right.
work that you do, preparing up to the showtime. So
And people
yeah,
can
and I
see
think
it.
that's the biggest surprise for clients is they don't realize how much work that goes into it. But once they get on board with that, it's a much better production. I've podcast clients that are, that do believe in that, and their shows end up being really, really good. We work with a team, and that's really the key to it. And then once they climb on board with that, they realize, oh yeah, this stuff, there is a lot of work. And I think people don't realize they only see, well, if they're not seeing it, they don't see the necessity of it, but it is quite necessary, or else you're not going to be able to go
Right.
on and have a good show.
Right, right. So right now, guys, I know we're on episode 2. When we get to episode 6 or 7, what we're going to do is we're going to have this podcast, and you'll be able to get it on iTunes and Google Play and anywhere else podcasts are. So I'd encourage you guys to stay tuned to that. Also, go over and like the Telestream Facebook page if you have not done that already. Go like it. There's also a Wirecast users group. I'd encourage you to go over there and join that group. I'm one of the administrators there. I'll let you guys in. And the reason I'm asking you to do this is we want suggestions for the show. We want you to engage with us. We want audience participation. What are some of the things that you struggle with live video and social media? What are some of the things that maybe we can help you with on this show? I mean, that's one of the things. Marty said, hire a professional. But if you're one of those people that want to actually learn, and it's okay to crawl before you start to run. And I understand this
Yes.
day and age, you got to get up and going. But if you want to get to that point, feel free. Put down in that group. Go over Wirecast users. If you look it up on Facebook, go in there. We'll get you in there. And what we're going to do is we're going to start, facilitating comments, questions, and adding it to the show. Who knows? This show may become an hour long, but for right now, it's going to be a half an hour. We're going to keep it quick, smooth, and so just remember, do that. Go follow us, like the LinkedIn page. Let's build that audience, and we really appreciate it. Marty, thank you so much for taking the time today to come on and join us. Get your blood pressure
Yeah, hopefully
running.
my camera, I'll have a better presentation next week. I'll figure this out. But yeah, I got stung this week. But
Well, you're doing productions for other people, so it's to be
yes.
expected. So, if you guys want to know more about Marty, you can check him out at podjam.tv, and he's pretty much all over the web. Marty McPadden, just look him up. And guys, I really appreciate it. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. It's always a great time to come out here and reach out to you guys in the community, and remember to keep focused, stay vigilant, and make good productions. And just remember, you can be creative. So we'll see you next week, same time, same channel.